It is your Blue Room Weekly, and we've got lots coming up today on the show. We're going to talk about the feel-good factor that is around Everton at the moment. We're going to talk about the transfer window that's just happened, look ahead to Bournemouth, and seeing as we've got my mate Rob Vera on, we have to include a little bit Super Bowl chat because it is the Super Bowl this weekend, and I
Yeah.
know Roger in particular referenced it on Monday, so we'll address that later. But as I mentioned, it is me, Warren, and I have got Rob with me. And Rob, we haven't had a show together for a long time, so I was really keen to get you on. And I unfortunately missed you the last time you were over, with it being the midweek game, and I didn't quite catch up with you before the Spurs game. I didn't actually end up going to the Spurs game, so I was really gutted about that. But I know you'll be making future trips in the meantime. And the last time you were here, Rob, there was obviously a manager change, a bit of uncertainty about the club, and in the space of you being here and us talking today, there's been a real change in atmosphere around Everton, a real good feel good factor. And I suppose the question I want to ask you is, it's a two-parter really. It's how have you felt watching since the Spurs game when you were here and up until now? And the second part of that question is, and I posed this last week on Weekly, I said, if we were to beat Leicester, does that mean Everton are safe? Do you feel we are safe now? And if so, does that mean we can look forward to the summer and, move into the new ground in a much healthier position?
Well, let me answer that second part first. Les and I got into this pretty deeply on Kickabout recently when it was last week before the Leicester game, and we talked about the fact that if you just looked at the table and obviously considering the opposition, that if we were able to win that game, to really get to your point, does it make us 100% safe with this much of the season to go? No, but I would say that, just looking at all of the various sites with their kind of relegation possibilities calculated based on remaining schedule and, how many teams are between us and where, in the bottom and where we are in terms of our current points return, et cetera, that it's one of those where, yeah, we're not technically safe, but you had to feel like if we could take care of business against Leicester, and especially given how emphatically we did so, that would put us in a great position. I mean, I think we're not 100%, Warren. I mean, anything can happen, and if anything can happen, it often does to Everton. But I would say that we're probably upwards of 99% that we're staying in the league. I think what to get back to the first part of your question, how have I felt since coming back? I mean, obviously it was pretty emotional for me in a lot of ways to take in my last Goodison experience, but doing so in a way that involves such a great win, and for us to continue to kick on since then has been great. And I would say that ever since I got back, I'm looking forward to watching Everton in a way that I truly have not felt in some time. It's got to be before Dyche got here. I mean, it feels like we've been in this sort of holding pattern, holding on phase, this purgatory, if you will, for so long. And I find it funny that David Moyes has come back, and in the span of essentially 4 Premier League matches, he's won 3 of them, and he's already kind of achieved the main thing he was hired to do, which was just to make us safe. He's already come in and done that, and in doing so, restored a side that people are looking forward to seeing a little bit more. We're scoring goals, and I'm not mistaking us for any kind of offensive juggernaut or anything like that. But the clear competency, the lift psychologically that he's brought to the side, I think when we talk about that symbiotic relationship between the players and the fans at the best of times, I think it's hard not to also feel the weight that he has lifted off of the players and therefore lifted off of us. He's come in and just said, all right, there you go, 3 wins out of 4. And now, we've got this, double-digit gap between us and the bottom, essentially. And that's all we really could have asked for, and frankly, a lot more than any of us were expecting. So, it felt great since then. Can't wait for the cup match this weekend, even though it's Bournemouth and they're really good. And you never know what to expect in a cup game at Goodison. But really, the league is the main thing. And I think we all feel a lot better. And I think part and parcel with feeling better, we've gotten to this position where we can just watch an Everton game and a group of players that suddenly feel like relatable again, feel like players that we feel connected to. And from that standpoint, I'm excited. I can't wait to watch Everton play again on Saturday.
I think you've used the words excited there a lot, and I know you witnessed that Spurs game in person and how great that was for you. And I did say at the time, by the way, I said Rob Vera always comes away from a trip with a win under his belt.
At least one.
At least one. And I just felt that you were going to see that, and I just felt that the Everton football and gods would smile down on you. But I know you would have felt the feel good after that game, and seeing Everton score 3 goals, for instance, before half time. I was at the Leicester game last week, and it was great for all of us who were there that day, and yourself watching back in the States. But the one thing I really took from it, Rob, was everyone just felt really happy again. And I know we've had wins under Dyche in the past where we've done well, or we might have played well, and people are satisfied and they've got the win, but it never felt like we were really moving towards sort of past the dark spell that we went through with the PSR situation, the financial situation. And Moyes referenced this himself recently about come away from the darkness into what is hopefully going to be a new era and a new light. And Saturday's game against Leicester really represented that for me. It was great to see and talk to so many people who were just pleased. It was great going into the pubs afterwards, and everyone was just really keen to talk about the game and not about which player played poorly or what decision the manager made or why he didn't make a certain sub at a certain time. It was just full of praise for everyone who was in. Even the weather got praise, Rob. The fact that it was a sunny day and it was the low sunshine on the Gladys Street.
Yeah.
Everything about Saturday just fell into place, and I think a lot of it is down to, as you mentioned, the thing what Moyes has done and lifted that weight, as you mentioned, off the players and off the shoulders of players. And I think one player I just want to touch on briefly, I want to talk about, and I know there's been examples of him being mentioned, but I just want to talk to you more about it as well, if I could, is Jake O'Brien. And whilst much of the focus, quite rightly, has been on James Garner and Beto for their performances, on the fact that Doucouré's had a good game, his first probably one for a long time, where he's looked decent again. For me, I just think Jake O'Brien has slotted into that spot, and I don't want to go too much, Rob, overboard on the fact that Dyche never played him. We've talked that to death, but I just think it's a real credit that someone like him's come in this side now under this new regime and under this feel-good feeling that we're talking about. And he's slotted in as if he's been there all season. And he's become a real plus now, to the point where I'm not worried about, I know we're not mathematically safe, but I just look at that back three hybrid into a back four and think there's no way that this team defensively looks like it's capable of going down. There was a time a couple of seasons ago where we got called out on, national media over here for having a quote unquote championship back four or championship defence. That's certainly not the case anymore. And I don't have that fear anymore. I feel like we can go and get another, out of the last remaining games, at least another 6 clean sheets if we wanted, because I just think we're that solid defensively. But yeah, going back to Jake O'Brien, Rob, what have you made of his impact? Because he has made an impact, hasn't he? And he has made a difference to this team.
Well, it's his impact in some ways feels more substantial than probably the actual technical impact in some ways. And what I mean by that is that I think that if we think about all the things that just kind of felt off about, and I don't just mean the obvious things like we didn't win much, we didn't score much, we were always flirting with relegation in the last few years, but specifically this season, I think that you touched on something in regards to we're not technically safe, but we feel so safe. We feel different. And I think Jake O'Brien, in a lot of ways, is a microcosm of that to a degree, because we talked about the idea, and I said it several times, that what Sean Dyche had come to the conclusion to about his inability to get more out of the team, before he even said it, I think we all felt it. It felt very much like watching Everton was a dead end. And when we would get a point or we'd get a win, it felt more like just kind of a slight relief than it did feel like anything joyous, which it feels different now. We said that if David Moyes could come in and get 10 to 15% more out of the squad than Sean Dyche, that would be a success. And let's be real, Warren, he's gotten more out of the squad than I think any of us
100%.
probably could have expected. And in doing so, and part of the way he's done that is not only elevating players that we suspected were good, like Njai, for instance, who we thought like he's got some quality in him, but we haven't seen a lot of goals, but we think it's there, to actually getting them now scoring on a regular basis. But he also took guys like O'Brien and Lindstrom and said, these are useful parts that have not been used or have been completely ignored. I'm going to use them. I'm going to find a way to get the best out of these guys as part of a plan that makes more sense. And Jake O'Brien in particular, I think what has been most impressive to me is how unshakable his entire demeanor has been since he came in. He is playing and acting like, and frankly, talking to the media in the manner with which in the manner you would expect from a much more confident, experienced, older player. If anything, you can kind of sense the chip on his shoulder of like, I can feel him saying at times in these interviews when he has kind of subtly talked about the lift in confidence that David Moyes has brought compared to, what was left behind. Like, he doesn't use Dyche's name, but you get the sense that you can read between the lines there. And he's saying, yeah, of course it was absurd that I came here and sat for this long. I should have been playing before now. I've gone out and proved it. And to do so at a kind of a weird hybrid position, he's not he kind of plays right now in this setup, a right back, center half hybrid position. That's complicated when you haven't played in so long, to be able to come out, to come in from the dark, if you will, and be able to just slot in and play. I think Dave said it many times. It feels a little bit like Jolien Lescott, who was a center half playing at a fullback position. But I also think it says something about how I think Jake O'Brien in a lot of ways is a testament to the idea that if you're a really talented footballer, you should be playing. And if the manager is a manager of any sort of skill or acumen or even with just the slightest amount of creativity, he is going to be less dogmatic about, well, it's this formation and you play this position and you fit into this little box. And instead he looks and says, who are my best 11 players and how can I deploy them in a manner that is going to get the most out of them and therefore most out of this collective group in this squad? I mean, it's not like short of Jolien Lescott that David Moyes has just played tons of formations and setups with three center halves playing in a four. I mean, I think that David Moyes is just looking at the squad and saying, this is a quality player and he should be playing. And let's be real. I mean, Jake O'Brien, it's not the same. They're different players, but he has kind of come in with this surprising amount of assuredness and confidence, much like Branthwaite came in with, after last season or last season rather. And, after he sat for a while for reasons we didn't understand for Michael Keane, he came in and just was great. And it was like, it's almost as if you just have to give young players a chance to show their talent. I think the other thing that makes me happy about the Jake O'Brien story, just to finish this off, Warren, is that I have long championed this idea that there's so little to be gained in playing dead end players that don't have a future at Everton anymore. Sean Dyche played Michael Keane and played lots of Ashley Young and told us that it was the only way he was going to squeeze, anything out of this talentless squad that he had. And that we were lucky that he was able to get this much out of them. Whereas David Moyes has come in and said, no, I think we can play younger players if they have more upside and talent. We can achieve our short-term goals. And imagine what this experience right now is doing for Jake O'Brien for next season. And to me, that is huge, because I don't know about the future of Tarkowski, for instance. But hey, if you told me right now that Jared Branthwaite and Jake O'Brien were my starting center halves going into Bramley Moore next season, I would be ecstatic about that outcome. And I think that this experience for Jake O'Brien has just been immense. He has looked like he fits in. He has looked confident. And by the way, he is 6'6" and does not seem to. And I think every attacking player, he's gone up against Matoma and Son and some really talented guys, and has not taken a bad step yet. I think they think he's slow because he's big, this big, tall, white dude, and yet his strides are so long. He seems able to defend with ease. It's been just a lovely watching him, and it really bodes well for the future.
I'm really happy, Rob, that we've taken the time to praise him, and you lavish that praise on him that you have done, because there was question marks about him, and not necessarily his fault. The transfer fee paid for him, and the fact that he wasn't getting minutes at a club that seemingly or hasn't had great financial footing to be able to pay players to sit on the bench. It didn't seem right, and the fact that he's come in and done what he's done, I think it's an absolute credit to him and his professionalism. I don't think a lot of people have mentioned that. The fact that he probably would have got frustrated. He probably would have been angry at times that he's made this move from playing regularly in France to not doing anything for a team that was struggling as well. So for him to come in is like I said, an absolute testament to his professionalism, his ability, and just the way he's gone about things. I think it's a real credit, and I'm pleased that we've been able to give him that praise on the show. And like I mentioned, he was a transfer that we looked at and thought, why have we spent that money? A club that in the past has spent money maybe that we didn't need to spend, or gone for that transfer that we probably didn't need, but we just wanted to get a name in. And it leads me to speak about the transfer window, Rob. And I heard Matt talk about this on the byline, and Matt was explaining how he was quite content with the transfer window and the fact that, yes, of course, look, there's gaps in the squad that need addressing. There's injuries. We would have loved another forward. We would have loved a wide player, for instance. We would have loved maybe another midfielder just to support, the outgoing Oral Mangala who suffered that horrific injury. But actually, is the lack of signings a good thing? Because I think Everton in the past, especially under Moshiri, there would have been a bit of a firecracker of a transfer where we would have signed a player just for the sake of it, rather than bringing something in that we need. I think back to the likes of Cenk Tosun, who we signed on huge wages for a lot of money and didn't really do anything. I think back to a lot of signings made. That's just one off the top of my head, Rob, but more than me. There's been a lot.
I remember Cenk Tosun. I remember just waiting on that and Walcott, because we just at the time were so desperate, we needed to be saved. At that
time. Probably at another time in another period in Everton's history, they might have been good signings. But for the signings that they were at the time we signed them, for the money they were on. And I liked Walcott personally, but I just think it was the right sign at the wrong time. If you get my drift, But is it the fact that we have only brought one in? Is that potentially a good thing?
Yeah, and look, I think, let's be real. Just like we view the recent performance of Everton, like let's say the feel good factor that we've all been talking about feeling, we view that through a contextual lens of everything from the fact that Moyes is doing this in the way he's doing it, like we're scoring goals. We actually look like we're trying to win instead of just trying to hold on. But we're also doing it in the context of having new ownership. So it doesn't feel like, as opposed to past seasons where it was like, well, we just got to survive and hang on so that hopefully we stay in the league and hopefully someone buys us. Now it feels very much like, we're able to take that everything that's happening right now is to take a step forward versus just holding on, right? And so I think that that all of that context, plus the stark reality and the good reality in this case of the table, I think that informs how we feel about the window. If David Moyes comes in and loses 3 of 4 instead of wins 3 of 4, then I think we are all having a very different conversation. And frankly, I think Everton are probably taking more risks in the transfer market at that point to get a striker in, or to get, to fill in a position of need. But I think in this case, it is a good thing, and I'm very much on the same page with Matt in that, I like the look of the potential of the midfielder that we got in on basically a completely no risk basis. He's a loan with an option. Love that. If he comes in and performs well, then hey, we've got an early start to business for the summer. But what I would say as well is that, yes, there's a part of me that was hoping, hey, wouldn't it be nice if maybe we got one extra player in, a fullback, another maybe wing player, a striker, whatever. It would have been nice. But at the same time, given the realities of PSR, which I'm just hoping we don't have to talk about much again moving forward, I am fine given the fact that we have got a nice, now sizable gap with a match in hand, above the relegation zone, and knowing that at the end of this season, we essentially get almost a complete reboot or reset of our finances, and the PSR, cloud just will dissipate and almost pretty much disappear at that point. So for me, I can now start to look at Everton in a big picture way of saying, yeah, but I want to make sure that we're in a position to really take advantage of these new resources we have from ownership and the new stadium and the excitement of all that, to really bring in some difference-making players to the squad for next season. And so I think that's where all of this feels so different, is that these last several windows, these last several seasons have all been an exercise in hanging on and trying to mitigate as much potential damage as possible. Whereas now I can view moves, or in this case, a lack of moves, through the lens of a greater forward progression and a bigger picture going forward. And that ought to excite everyone. Yes, it would be nice if we could, start that process now. But I would say that if the timelines for, and I think striker is the position we're all most worried about, but if the timelines for Shermiti and Broja and, even to a lesser degree, Calvert-Lewin, I still don't totally expect to see for the remainder of the season, but whatever. I just feel like, you buy another striker and bring him in, and then Shermiti is back in 3 weeks, and then Broja is back in 5 weeks. And then suddenly it's kind of a weird situation you've got there in terms of the squad. And so don't love it. Feel a little nervous, but we haven't even talked about how Beto scoring those 2 goals and doing it in the manner with which he did it, and decisively. Again, you can put all the caveats you want on it, but seeing that on Saturday had to make us all feel a little bit better about not going out and splashing money on a striker, because we feel like if Beto, as long as he can stay fit, knock on wood, during this period, I think we're going to be okay. And so from that standpoint, I feel good about where we are, and I'm looking forward to what we can do in the summer.
Yeah, it's like I said, I don't want people to listen and think that we're saying that because we've only signed one player, it's majestic by Everton, and we had a masterful transfer window. Of course we didn't. Like you said, we would have loved 1, 2 more, and the squad needs probably another 5 or 6, if we're honest, to get it to where we want it to get. For me, the way I view it is, by not signing the players, or not making the signings, or going out there and signing someone on huge wages or a massive fee, yes, we might have taken a step back, but it means coming forward into the summer, you take another 2 going forward. So that's the way I view it. There will be, it seems, progression eventually, but with the situation of the club and how things have been the last few years, I think you've summed it up brilliantly there, where you've said it's not like we're holding on. It's something to get us to where we need to be. And like you said as well, I mean, I won't profess to know too much about Charlie Alcaraz, who's signed. I think a lot of Southampton fans have said that we've got a good player in there, someone who'll fight and someone who'll do what they do, what he'll do for the fans, for instance. And we've got potentially a bit of a hothead there as well, which I think he already could be a cult hero just for that basis alone. But I think it's at least it's something that's being addressed, and
it gives competition in the Decore spot as well, which is
absolutely.
great.
And I don't think it's any surprise that Doucouré had his best game in a long time on Saturday. And I think a lot of that will probably to do with the fact that he knew, a competition for his place is signing on deadline day. And yeah, Doucouré played very well against Leicester, and you'll be hoping he does the same again on Saturday, Rob, when Bournemouth visit. And I am, as listeners know, I am down on the south coast near Bournemouth, and I'm taking a few Bournemouth fans up with me for the journey on Saturday. I'm going the game, and I was chatting to one of them, and I said, this represents a real chance for you, doesn't it? You've had a great season, a wonderful team at the moment. You've got a manager who I think is doing wonders there, and I'm really intrigued to see what his career path takes in the future, whether he stays at Bournemouth or whether he moves on. But they are a very well run club, and they've done a lot of things right. And I said to my friend who now, do you think that you will go for this game? And he emphatically answered me back saying, no, we've had a lot of injuries. We're doing very well at the fact that we've won a few games with the injuries we've had, but we will not be risking bringing players back into this team and to lose out in a cup game when we're doing so well in the league. We need them fresh for the run in the league. And Bournemouth's thing at the moment, or the fans' thing at the moment that they're all talking about, is it would cap off just a wonderful period for them if they could make European football. The friend who I'm talking about, he was saying, I remember when we were in League Two and we had points deducted ourselves and we were almost relegated into the conference or the National League. He said to go from that to now on the verge of European football, which, let's face it, is a very realistic opportunity for them.
Yeah,
he said that would just complete everything. So I think there's a feeling around Bournemouth at the moment that they want to hit as high as they can in the league, and not to say they'll take an eye off the cup. I'm sure they'll come and they'll play really well on Saturday because they've done so all season. But it does feel like a chance for us, and whether or not they play the strongest team or not, the way we're going at the minute, I can certainly see it being a very good game. How do you see it going Saturday, Rob? Do you think that we can carry this on, or do you think that Bournemouth will just be like what Bournemouth are against Everton, just annoy us and prove to be this ongoing threat that we've had since they were a Premier League team?
I mean, first of all, Bournemouth will always annoy us, and I don't think that anything will ever change that. You can change the managers, the players, the owners. It doesn't really matter. So first and foremost, I mean, I am of the feeling right now. I am full of the irrational confidence that I think a lot of us are kind of feeling right now. Of why not? Like who should we be afraid of right now? Like I'm not. I don't even have a dread about the derby coming up next week because I just am sort of feeling like, come to Goodison and find out. And I think that we are going to, if we lose, it won't be because it may be on small margins. We maybe lose because there's a gap in quality and we just didn't quite execute or whatever. But I definitely feel like right now, that same feeling that gives us excitement about watching Everton is something that's pervasive throughout the squad. I think they look forward to playing right now. I think they want to play, and the fact that it's at Goodison, like it's funny more is to answer your question of how I think it'll go on Saturday. I mean, one, just based on what you said about the fact that Bournemouth, maybe rightly so, is focused on the league because they are right there in terms of European qualification and they need to make that a priority. Hey, that can't hurt. But they've got a pretty good squad, and so I do expect a really good effort. But what I'd say is that even if they were playing their full side as good as they've been, I think Everton are having a moment right now at Goodison. The season that many of us had kind of hoped to have in terms of just some nice moments or some good feelings, we really didn't have any of that for 60% of the season at Goodison. But boy, sure has turned around now, hasn't it? Ever since David Moyes returned, even the Villa game that I went to where we lost, and he kind of put out Sean Dyche's old 11 before he made the switch to O'Brien and Lindstrom and those guys, and the overall changes in the the shape of the team, you could sense that there was something a little bit different, a different feeling there. And then you saw against Spurs, and then you've seen in these subsequent games since, being able to, grit out the, a great away win at Brighton, and then obviously how we played Leicester at home. I think right now there's a good enough feeling there that they ought to be able to go in any game against anyone, especially at Goodison, and feel like they've got a good shot to win. And so from that standpoint, hey, I never feel good about Everton in cup matches, generally speaking. But this game in isolation, hey, you win this, and then suddenly, there's a chance for something that could start to maybe get special. Like I'm caveating the hell out of this, Warren, because I don't want to allow myself to believe too much, but I mean, I'm almost less concerned about the cup part of this, Warren, and more of just the idea of I just want to see Everton play a good side at Goodison and see how they look. They've looked good lately. Can we keep this going? We've won 3. Do you realize how rare it is for Everton to win 3 matches in a row? It's so we haven't had much of that over the last several years, and so I just want a cup game, league game, whatever. I'm looking forward to Saturday because I'd love to see us win 4 in a row, and I feel good about the immaculate vibes, if you will.
Yeah, and you're right. It is rare that we're in such good form, and I know people will be listening, going, "Well, there was 2 occasions last year where we won 4 games in a row," but they were clouded by the fact that we had this points deduction and the fact that we were still looking over our shoulders for a long time, and and this just has that added happiness about it, and then the fact that the team are playing well and scoring goals and at times quite really nice football to go along with it, Rob. And
yeah,
just going back to the Bournemouth game as well, and I've not quite got suckered into this chat yet, but I've seen a lot of people online in particular saying about the parallels with 95 and the fact that we were struggling at the bottom of the table, we weren't scoring, we weren't winning.
Yeah,
we got rid of the manager. We brought a new manager in Joe Royle, who steered us away from relegation and used the cup as almost a distraction, really, a nice distraction. And Saturday feels like that to me. It feels like that I wouldn't be the most, of course I'd be gutted if we lost and it's another year without winning a trophy again, which needs to be sorted sooner rather than later. But I don't think a loss would, unless it was a humiliating one, but I don't think that'll happen either. I don't think a loss would really destabilise us or affect us that much, especially going into the derby as well. I'd still think a lot of people will look forward to the derby with it being the last one. And I think, like you referenced there, Goodson's got its bounce back, but there is a lot of parallels with 95. And I think that if we do get that win and we're in the 5th round and we get another home draw, that'll start getting people excited again. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And I know you've been a fan, am I right in saying 2004?
Yeah,
a
little over 21
so
years.
I know you didn't have the the ability to watch us in 95, and I was only a kid myself, so I haven't seen us as an adult, similar to you, do much in the FA Cup. But does it give you the same excitement, someone who's not seen us win this trophy? Does it give you the same excitement as it does to people here and people who've seen Everton lift the trophy in the past? And does this Bournemouth game, do you look forward, because I know you're 6 hours behind, do you look forward to getting up, having your breakfast, maybe a beer with your breakfast and watching this game? Or do you look at it and think, well, no, I get it's a big thing in England, but I'm ready to see Everton stay up and move to the new ground and become a Premier League force?
I mean, yes to all of it. I mean, I think I mean, I'm looking forward to the future for sure. But like I said, I think right now there's just this overwhelming sense that it's almost like if fun was an animal, it's like we've caught it and we've got it by the tail and we don't want to let it go. Like we've caught something fun right now, and I just want to keep that going. I am having come off of a great trip over and really getting to sort of be there at the beginning of this good little moment and form that we're in. That enough, and obviously all my visits over and just supporting Everton for 2 decades. I mean, I think the difference right now is that the last few years it has felt like a chore to watch Everton. It has felt like, even last season when we kind of, put put the relegation thing to bed because the rest of the league behind us was so bad and we won a few games in a row. Even those didn't feel good. They just felt like, all right, let's get this over with. And I'm glad it's not as dramatic as it was the season before. This feels different because, again, I think that that there feels like there's just possibilities in ways that there hadn't before. From a cup perspective, yeah, I mean, look, I've been supporting this thing for 2 decades, and the closest we've gotten to winning was making it to the FA Cup final, obviously, and that was heartbreaking on its own. I am so ready to see something different, but I will tell you, Warren, that one thing that is going to be harder for someone like me, who was not around, back in '95, I was watching the Cowboys win Super Bowls, like that's what I was doing. Didn't even know what an Everton was back then. Right. But I think that in the same way that it felt like we were never going to beat Liverpool ever again until we finally did under Carlo. And then, last season winning it, it goes it just feels like you're never going to do it until you do it. And then you don't know what that feeling is going to feel like until it actually happens. And then it's amazing, and maybe you're, like me during COVID, jumping out in the snow and doing snow angels and stuff. When we win that game at Anfield, even in front of no crowd. But I think that a cup run is one of those things that, you're going through, and at the time you come to each match and you're just like, all right, well, let's see how it goes today. And you win and you're like, hey, names in the pot. But what happens is that the cup feeling, the magic of the cup feeling, it sneaks up on you very slowly until suddenly you realize, whoa, we're in the 5th round, or whoa, we're in the, we're getting close to a quarter or a semi or whatever, and then you start to believe that something can happen. I don't really believe it yet because I just don't feel like right now, it just feels like so low on the list of priorities, which sounds crazy since we haven't won a trophy in forever. I just mean in terms of the short term of this season, where obviously the league is the priority. Having said that, Warren, we go out there and not only beat Bournemouth, but we beat them handily. And we're in the next, got our name in the hat after that, on top of or on the back of this renewed form, the renewed enthusiasm, the renewed optimism, the feelings of both nostalgia for Moyes and all of us who for whom he is our manager. And then, what's happening with the new stadium and all the cool pictures that are coming out, like all these things. It's a confluence of factors. It is a perfect storm of fun. Episode title, Perfect Storm of Fun. That is happening. And so, hey, I don't feel the magic of the cup feelings yet, Warren, but I will be up on Saturday. And if we win, I suspect that feeling will just continue to grow and grow.
You're saying there about if we win handsomely on Saturday, it gets people excited. And a similar thing again, with the parallel in '95. I remember being a youngster and seeing Norwich come to Everton twice and destroying Everton. And then in the FA Cup that year, we thumped Norwich 5-0, and albeit the 5th round, not the 4th round. But that was the point then. And I even felt it as a young kid at the time that you felt like there was a real excitement and a real buzz, and the cup run was going to happen. And, look, it could all come crashing down. Of course, it could on Saturday. But I think you're right. I think if Everton gets some sort of win and win well, it will set us up nicely for the derby, and I think it'll set us up nicely going into the remainder of the season. We can certainly start getting and thinking of a potential deep run into the cup. So who knows? We'll see. Rob, I did have an ulterior motive to getting you on. Obviously, I said to you at the start of the show, I haven't spoken to you for a while. We haven't done a show together for a while, and
you're gonna have to come on and kick about here pretty soon, buddy.
Yeah, and you've offered to get me on Kickabout as well, which I'd obviously love to come on and do with yourself. But I've done the stereotypical thing, Rob. Ahead of Super Bowl Sunday, I've had to get the American on to talk about the Super Bowl. And look, I know a lot of people will be switching off now, going, "Oh, we're not interested." And look, that's you. But we also have a sizable.
Oh, you got a sizable number of NFL fans.
We've got a sizable number of NFL fans, and look, I am without any sort of apologies, I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing in red that is acceptable. But I will caveat that by saying that I did live in Kansas City for a time. And
Sure.
as you know, I'm a big Royals fan, which is the
Right.
baseball team. I'm a big fan of all things Kansas City. So I have been watching their season this season. And I heard Roger say that Roger Armstrong on Blue Monday, big Philadelphia Eagles fan. He gave a good look to the Eagles. I've got a big good look to the Chiefs to even that. I'll put that wrong right straight away.
Yeah.
But I've watched this season, and Rob, the Chiefs came away with a 15-3 record, 15-2 record. 15-2 record, and the Eagles have lost one more in the regular season than the Chiefs did. The Chiefs felt a lot of the time like a stressful time to watch, but I heard a couple of people say it must be really difficult watching a stressful team win every week. And and this is the thing, and it was stressful, but it's been nice following a team that wins, Robin.
You deserve that, Warren. All of us deserve to have one.
All of us deserve to have one team.
Hey, the best team in the NBA right now is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I'm a season ticket holder. I get it. They are the reward for my loyalty to Everton all these years and following them through all this mess. So no, you don't have to for that at all.
I feel it feels nice supporting a team that has a superstar quarterback. It feels nice to support a team that has a player who is probably in time going to get married to a global superstar. If you don't know what I mean, I'm talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, obviously. But they come up against, Rob, a team in search of revenge after losing out to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And I'm worried about this. I actually do think this is where the Chiefs run comes to an end. And I think I actually feel that the
You're crying it in, I see. All right.
I'm not crying it in. I think Jalen Hurts is going to turn it on. And forgive me, I forget the running back's name, but
Saquon Barkley.
He's a special player.
Probably the MVP, yeah.
And the Chiefs defense has got to be on it. They've got to be on top. And you look, if Pat Mahomes has got the ball in his hand, anything can happen. But yeah, how do you see it going? How do you see it going on Sunday?
I mean, it's not the matchup I was hoping for, because as a Cowboys fan, which is its own, 7 circles of hell experience, I will not ever support the Eagles in any matchup. Having said that, their opponent is the Chiefs, who are going for their 3rd straight Super Bowl, who have very quickly, I think that thing has happened that happens to a lot of very successful dynasty type teams in America in particular. And I think this is universal in sport. I think it's probably the way that people have felt about City, and are really happy to see cities come up and starting to happen this season to a degree, is that the Chiefs are kind of, they're both loved, and they're now kind of the bad guys. They're the ones who, God, if the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl again, guess what? And it's the same old. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is the best play. I mean, Saquon Barkley, the Eagles running back, had a historic season. He's probably going to be the MVP this season. But at the same time, I think it's universally regarded that Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the sport. He is going for what would be his 4th Super Bowl win already, which is hard. And this will be his fifth shot at it. And he's, done this at still a relatively young age. I mean, it's hard to, I think the thing with the Chiefs this season is that they actually haven't been very good on offense. That's been their defense that's carried them. They've won a lot of weird, fluky games, everything from, ball hitting the upright and popping in at the last second, to other teams handing them wins by making stupid boneheaded decisions near end of games. But like any championship path, or any Cinderella season, even to make this about Everton for a minute, I think about my first season supporting them, the 04-05 Champions League run that Everton made to 4th. I mean, I talk about fine margins. They were winning those games 1-0. It was like, yeah, guess what? 1-0, Marcus Bent. Like, it was the same, it was the same story, but that becomes a habit. Winning close games becomes a habit. And it also requires a little bit of luck and a little bit of good fortune and those sorts of things. The Chiefs have had that. But when you combine having if you put the Chiefs in a position where their defense keeps them in it and it's down to one possession at the end of the game and you can hand it to Mahomes, I mean, you're going to pick Mahomes. It's just hard. It's sort of like I was talking about the cup. Like, I'll believe Everton can win a trophy when they actually do it. I'll believe Mahomes is going to lose one of these when he does. Like, he's lost, he lost to Tampa Bay, in his one Super Bowl loss. But I think that let's be real, he feels right now like he feels inevitable. And inevitable is the one adjective that is the most intimidating word or label I can apply to any athlete, who, when you see him across from you, you just have that sense of dread of like, if he gets a chance, it's going to happen and he's going to beat us. The Eagles are a really good team. They run the ball exceptionally well. They make, they have lots of explosive plays. Jalen Hurts lost to the Chiefs a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl, and outside of a weird fumble, was on his way to being the MVP of that game. He's a very good quarterback. The Chiefs have a very talented defensive front. I do expect this to be a close game, but expecting it to be a close game, it's impossible for me to pick against the Chiefs right now. I mean, I think until I see another team do it, I think I still have to pick them. And frankly, as much as I don't relish the idea of the Chiefs becoming the first NFL team to win 3 Super Bowls in a row, which, by the way, never happened. The Cowboys won 3 out of 4 in the 90s. The Patriots obviously, won a ton of Super Bowls, but never 3 in a row. This would certainly be historic. And, from that standpoint, I guess I want the Chiefs to win. And hey, it makes you happy, Warren, and makes Matt Flusk, who's an Eagles fan, a little sad. I can live with that, I suppose. But no, it wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles won, but I just can't pick against Mahomes. He feels inevitable, man. And
he's generational, isn't he? He is generational. Yeah. And I think the relative short time I've been an NFL fan, I haven't seen much, and I don't know as much as the history as yourself, but it seems that the sport is blessed with phenomenal quarterbacks at the moment. And I actually feel that the best quarterback who's been the best quarterback this season is not actually going to be playing in the Super Bowl in Josh Allen. I thought he had a phenomenal season, and the fact that Mahomes and the Chiefs got through the Bills in the AFC Championship game was something else, and I wasn't expecting a win there either. So who knows? I mean, I think the scenario you paint where it's a one-play game with a minute on the clock and Mahomes has got the ball, I think you're right. I think it'll be hard to disregard the Chiefs, but saying that, I just think the Eagles are going to bring, and they're going to have this motivation to want to get through and do what they couldn't do a couple of years ago against the Chiefs. So yeah, it'll be a phenomenal event, as it always is. I'm going to try and stay up and watch it because I've still got work the next day, so I need to try and figure out a way of seeing it through. But
you got Kendrick Lamar at halftime.
Yeah,
commercials. Look. Can I just say something really quick, Warren, about
the game?
Please do. The one thing the NFL I want them to consider changing is one. I think that there's this term Super Bowl Sunday is like this famous phrase, right? But I almost think the NFL has become a prisoner of that. Like, why does it have to be on a Sunday night? Even in America, when it starts, it's on
Saturday. It'd be incredible.
On Saturday, but also like starting it at 5:30, about approximately 5:30 p.m. kickoff my time. So that's 11:30 p.m. your time. I mean, the NFL to me kind of talks out of both sides of its mouth. On the one hand, they seem to be doubling down on putting games in not only the UK but in Europe increasingly during the regular season. You've got them in Germany and in Brazil. We're going to have our first NFL game in Australia, I believe, next year, the year after, or a couple of years from now. The Rams are playing in that, I believe. And so the point being that, like, if you're going to be this international sport, you've got, and it's not like the Super Bowl struggles for ratings. I mean, behind the World Cup final, it's generally speaking the most watched thing in the world. Every time it comes on.
Well, it transcends the sport as well, because people who aren't fans know what the Super Bowl is, and they know what the halftime show is.
Yeah, and so for me, start it at. I don't know why you don't start it at like 3 p.m. on a Saturday, my time, starts at 9 p.m. or 8, or maybe make it a little earlier. Start at 8 p.m. in the UK and 2 p.m. here, making an all-day morning pregame. The game goes from like 2 to 6 p.m. lasts 4 hours, and then you have time to like for all the post game and all the all the stuff. And then the next day, and you can drink and have fun because everyone here plans a Super Bowl party. But as you get older like me, you're like, oh, Sunday night, I don't get to drink that much. I got a big meeting on Monday for work. It's one of those things. I'm hoping the Super Bowl that the NFL will amend the Super Bowl scheduling at some point to make it a more globally friendly start time, especially if the fan
make
base
it Saturday. I know it's traditional, and I know we're big about our traditions in this country with our national sport, but make it a Saturday. Make everyone watch it. So we'll leave it there. And I want to thank Rob for coming on with me on the weekly. It's been great talking to you again, mate. I haven't, as I said, had the chance to speak to you for a while. It's just been great to do a show, and it won't be the last. We'll obviously do more together. So if you're listening ahead in the rest of the week to the Blue Room, we've obviously got post-match will be with the lads again on Saturday afterwards. Make sure you go to the Denby and say hello to them. They, I was in there on Saturday myself and spoke to a few people, which was really great to do. And, obviously a great place to be after the match and before the match as well. So get yourself in there if you can. Mailbag will be back on Saturday as well with Les. I think he's got Keith and a few others on with him as well. Liam from the Good Times podcast will be on as well. And then following after the Bournemouth game and all your dissecting of that and the analysis of that will come back on Blue Monday with Les, Dave and Roger, and then the brilliant byline will be back again on Tuesday with Matt and Paddy. So give us a like, give us a subscribe wherever you get your podcast from, and it'd be great to have if you could leave a review or leave us a comment. It always helps us out. So yeah, that is your Blue Room coming up before the next week. Thanks from Rob and thanks from myself. It is the Blue Room. Up those toffees, and we'll see you next week. Come on, you Chiefs. Cheers, Rob. Nice one. I think it's the